resuming now, and actually publish it at a later stage in YouTube. If anyone disagrees, you can find me, you can express your disagreement, and then we'll sort things out. Either I will not publish it at all, or we'll blur you out. We'll see what we can do. So this is my email, my Twitter. Now, very interesting talk for today, very different than what we used to. It's from Amber. Amber, in case you don't know Amber, is a multi-award winning international business person, keynote speaker, and founder of the Pathwayz Group. We're going to see today how, let's say, not to sabotage our great ideas by poor implementation. So I know that it's a very different meetup, a very different event and talk than what we are used to, but as far as I've seen, it is super interesting, and I think it will all help us all be just a bit better in the future. So Amber, I will stop sharing my screen now, and I will also mute, so the virtual stage will be yours. Just one question though. How do you want to do with questions? Will you guide us if there are any questions, or do you want them at the end?
We will, guide me with questions. So as you have questions, feel free to ask them, feel free to speak up. We're going to be creating an implementation plan all throughout this session. And so I'd love to speak through this as you are creating that plan.
Super, very nice. Stop sharing now and you are free to go.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming, for being here today. As alluded to just a moment ago, today we are going to talk about how to go from our ideas to actual implementation. We are going to actually be writing out a lot of our ideas. We're going to be sharing quite a bit. So we're going to begin with a little bit of practice. We're going to be using a lot of innovative thinking all throughout the day. So I'm going to begin by asking you a couple of different questions. Now, the answer can only be 4 words long. So you can only answer in 4 words. So let's start with something a little bit simpler. Can you explain your ideal holiday? I don't know about you, but I am ready to go traveling again. Explain your ideal holiday in only 4 words. You can put that in the chat. Your ideal holiday in only 4 words. Sunset beach, cold margarita might be one. Sunsea, sand beer. Yes, we're very similar. Yes. Snowy mountain, hot chocolate might be another one of my ideal holidays. Yeah, so these are some, only in 4 words. So we're trying to simplify as much as we can. Nature, silence, no responsibilities. That sounds like an amazing holiday. Okay, all right, let's do one more kind of fun one. How about in 4 words? Reading, sleeping, surfing, eating. That sounds amazing. In 4 words, ruin a romantic date. So ruin a date in 4 words. What 4 words would ruin a date? Say it's going very well. Why don't we try and ruin a date in 4 words? I forgot my wallet. Might be one. Yeah, I forgot my wallet. I have to go. Not like the picture. Yeah. Yeah, there's a few different. Coronavirus lockdown. Yes, those are some 4 words to explain. All right. So those are some more fun ones. So now we're going to get a little bit more focused on what our ideas are. So I want you to share a project idea that you have in only 4 words. I know that sometimes our ideas are very complex, very big. I want you to simplify in 4 words a project idea that you have. And if you are currently working, this could be a work project. If you are currently unemployed, then this could be a personal project, or if you want to do a personal project, you can do that as well. A personal idea or a work-related project idea that you have. Mobile app dev community. That's perfect. Generally useful for analyzers. Yes. Okay, great. All right, whether you share in the chat or you write it down, I want you to keep these ideas in your mind. All right, this is going to be the idea that we're going to build an implementation plan off of. Diagnostic suppressors for annoying words. I like how you put 2 words together to make that into 4 words. That was very clever. All right, I have one more 4-word challenge, okay? What is your biggest challenge in your project idea today? What's the biggest challenge that you are facing, or the biggest hurdle that is not allowing you to see that to completion right now? What's going to be the biggest challenge that you face? Time. You didn't need 3 other words. You literally, yeah, time and unit testability. All right. Yeah, time is huge. All right, perfect. Yeah, these are some different hurdles that we face as we are going from that idea stage to implementation. As stated before, my name is Amber Vanderburg, and I am the founder of the Pathwayz Group. And so we work with teams literally all over the world that have great ideas. One thing that we've seen is teams have wonderful ideas that can be sabotaged through poor implementation. And this is actually common. Actually, a lot of teams go through different phases, and there's a variety of different stages and phases that projects and teams go through. In fact, there's more than just one. There's several different stages that we go through. So I'm actually going to move us around. We're going to be moving around this room today. I'm going to move us around right here. Explain some of the different stages that our teams go through within our projects. And I'd love for you to kind of look at the project that you've outlined, or the idea that you have outlined, and identify where you are at in your project within these stages today. So the first idea is very traditional design thinking, right? So in design thinking, we have 3 different ideas. So we go from inspiration to ideation to implementation. All right, so this is the first idea. We go from inspiration to ideation to implementation. We're going to be working on that, going from ideation to implementation today. So what is actually inspiring this idea? What was the inspiration for the ideas that you had? And how do we actually go from ideation to implementation? The next phase that a lot of projects go through is to actually come up with the ideas. So we actually expand. I don't know if you can see that very well. Let me make that bigger. So we actually take time to extend our ideas. And so this is whenever anything is a possibility. How can we go?
Amber,
All the
I'm
ideas that
sorry
we're
I'm
coming up
interrupting
with.
you. Can you
Yes.
hear me? There is
Yes.
some problem with your sound. I mean, from time to time we just can't hear you.
Ah, maybe move it back a little bit. Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Yeah, now we can hear you super.
Okay. I'm right on the edge of the Wi-Fi, so move it back. Okay. I don't know if you can see that as well. Here's what I might do. I'm going to bring up my close
I think
whiteboard.
we can see it. Yeah, but we can see it anyway.
Okay. All right, here. I'll do it maybe on here.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you can see it better. Yeah, that's better. Okay. So we go from expanding our ideas. So here we have limitless ideas. So we're coming up with as many ideas as we can. And then we take the time to make our decisions. And so we go from one end to the other as we're going from that ideation to implementation side. And these two are pretty basic ideas. These are pretty basic ideas that we go through our process, through our ideas. But then there's some more complex ideas where our emotions look a little something like this. In that we begin with hope. So this is whenever we're in this inspiration phase, saying, oh, here are all of the expanded possibilities. This is everything that can be. And we begin with hope. And then as we gain more insights and we're making decisions, we're seeing those obstacles, we might get, this is called our insight phase. And our confidence in the implementation phase might wane a little bit as we're seeing the obstacles that we might face. But this insight, recognizing these obstacles, does not mean that we cannot continue moving forward. What it does is it prepares us to confront and overcome the obstacles that we'll face. And as we address these obstacles, then we move into this latter stage of confidence. So we go from hope to insight to confidence. All right, we go from hope to insight to confidence. And so this is a huge area that we move into as our team. Then we have our final area. So this is so we've talked a little bit about how that ideation, the phases of ideation, the phases of those emotions, the phases of our decision making. And then lastly, we have the phases of our actual team development. And so within our teams, this is based off an idea from a psychologist named Bruce Tuckman. And so he writes that all teams go through phases. That looks very similar to that hope, insight, and confidence phase. And in this phase, we actually go through 5 phases. First, we come together and we form as a team. We form as a team, and then we go through a storming stage. This is when we come together and we ask, how are we actually going to operate? How are we going to function as a team? You'll notice that performance takes a little bit of a dip in this point because we're not focused on performing, we're focused on the way that we're actually working. But as we establish these, as we go through the storming phase, we are establishing norms. And you'll notice that this time that we're taking to have these discussions will catapult us into a higher performance stage. And so while we're starting here, if we take a dip in the storming phase, we will establish better norms to catapult us into a higher performing stage. And then after we have performed, then we can enter into an adjourning stage. So this is when we ask at the end of a project, what did we do well? What can we do better? And how can we actually cut through? So in this adjourning stage, we actually cut through the norms. So we start at a higher location than where we formed, and we at a higher place than we stormed, and we storm again to establish better norms to perform even higher the next time. And so then we cut through again, and this is a continuous cycle. And every single time that we go through this cycle as a team, ideally, our team performance as a whole will be raised. Now, this is really important whenever we have our ideas, because we want to be able to build momentum based off of the ideas that we have as we're going through our implementation. Now, this sounds really nice. All right, it sounds really good. These are a lot of theories, and again, I want you to take the time. There. All right. I hope I'm going to move a little bit. Maybe you can hear me a little bit if I move location. Possibly. Can everyone hear me better now?
Yeah, it's super.
It's super now? Perfect. Okay. All right. I heard some people say no. Okay. All right, perfect. This is a little bit north of you guys in Berlin. All right. So these are some ideas of how we actually function as a team, but how do we actually apply this to our project today? I want you to think about your project and identify, where am I at right now within our emotion? Are we in more of a hook stage? Are we in insight? Are we in confidence? Are we in a storming phase? And by acknowledging where you are, you actually can prepare where your team is probably going, right? So whenever I come into a team and we are forming, I can predict that we will go through a storming phase, and then we will establish norms to perform at a higher level. And I can be predictive in this cycle of a team. I know whenever we are making decisions, right, we'll go through seasons of disruption and development. So disruption is whenever we look at all of the options, we say, what are all of the possibilities that we have? Development is when we actually make decisions and we focus on making those decisions moving forward, right? So we're going through this season of disruption and development, of hope and insight and confidence. And all of these are seasons that we'll go through as we are implementing our project. And having this knowledge, especially as I worked with some teams, sometimes just feeling that validation of, oh, this is normal for me to have that feeling of insight. And I know what's coming is confidence, right? And actually recognizing that within your teams and within your projects, really validating for a lot of teams as we're moving forward. So there isn't a specific area of these cycles that is necessarily bad or better. It's really just being intentional in moving from one phase to the other. And oftentimes I find that teams will get stuck, or projects will get stuck in one specific area. You might get trapped in the storming phase and trying to figure out how you're going to work and not establishing those norms. Might get stuck in that ideation phase where you have a lot of ideas but not know how to actually implement them. And so the idea is to intentionally move from one phase to the other. All of these are cycles as we are moving forward. And so the first thing to do in order to move from one phase to the other is to create a sense of urgency. You want to create a sense of urgency. Now, we can create a sense of urgency in a few different ways. So one way that we can create urgency is to actually bring in an outsider that can offer new insights. Another way that we can bring urgency is through a crisis, right? So COVID invoked a lot of change within our teams, a lot of urgency to actually act. We can also invoke urgency by living out, by continuously having an urgency to change and to develop within our teams. That's a culture that we can have. And then lastly, the fourth way that we can create a sense of urgency within our teams is to address the naysayers, or as John Cotter would call them, the no-nos. So these are the people that will say, do we really need to act now? Do we really need to do this today? And so John Cotter is actually the father of change management. So his last name is Kotter. And he writes that we must be able to address those that do not have a sense of urgency to act. Worked with a lot of teams, and we've even had teams within our company that we have a lot of great ideas, but we don't have a sense of urgency to act upon that. And so I want you to look at your project right now that you've written down. I want you to write down why we need to act on that project today. Why should I care? There's a ton of other projects that could be going on. So why do we need to act with urgency within your project? I'm giving you a couple of different ideas. Maybe there's a crisis situation. Maybe there's, why should I care, right? So what is the value added within your specific project? If we put it off for 5 more years, what is going to be the harm, right? Why should I care about this today? I want you to write that down. I'm seeing some people are writing it down. I'm going to grab that list for you. The joy of creation. Yeah. Sometimes creating the future can be a sense of urgency, right? I was speaking to someone earlier today, and we were talking about this unique opportunity as we are starting to re-emerge from a COVID lifestyle. And the future of our lifestyle and our future of work is being created right now. And there's a exciting energy around being able to create the future. So yeah, joy of creation is huge as well. Exactly. So I want you to write that down. Next, we're going to do a lot. You should be able to walk away today with a piece of paper on an actual plan on how to implement your specific idea. Next, I'm going to give you a pretty big challenge. I want you to number out on your paper 1 through 15. So we're going to have 15 different answers here. John Cotter will tell us the biggest thing of moving from ideation to implementation is to first have a sense of urgency. Why do we need to act on this now? Secondly, we need to build a guiding coalition. Now, that's just fancy speak for saying we need to know who is on our team, who is going to champion our success. And so I want you to write down 15 different people. That's a lot of people. I want you to write down 15 different people that will help to champion your success moving forward. Now, I've worked with some teams, and that list of 15 could include not only your team members, it could include other people within the company. It could include colleagues within the industry. It could include the 15 people that are here in this session today, right? Some have included librarians as resources that they have books and research ideas that they might not have, right? And so it depends on the nature of the project that you're in. But I want you to write down 15 different people that will help to champion your project success. Especially whenever we are in that insight stage, it can be very easy to become discouraged and to feel like you are taking this on all on your own. And so actually having that list of 15 people that will champion your success is a really powerful activity. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes actually to write that down. I'm going to play a little bit of music. Actually, I'm going to give you a minute and a half to write those down. I'm going to grab our piece of paper. Who champions their success? You can also use weak ties. So that means people that maybe you haven't spoken to in a long time. I have written down in some of my guiding coalition, people that maybe were my football coach whenever I was in grade school, someone that maybe I went to secondary school with, neighbors, right? If someone has a way that could help champion that success. And so sometimes it's very easy to, I even myself get caught up in the strong ties that I have. So people that I speak to on a regular basis. And it's easy to forget, oh, yeah, I have some other people that are within my community that are also champions of this specific success, specific project that I'm working on. Give you another minute. So all right. So if you have come up with 15 people, go ahead and give me either a hand raise or I came up with 15. If you did not, that is, I mean, that's a lot to ask for. So usually sometimes it's easy to write down the first 5, maybe the first 10. All right, I'm seeing some thumbs up, seeing some thumbs up. Perfect, perfect. Yeah, yeah. Now, I've done this with groups before where we write down 15, we spend time thinking about 15, and then I go to the next level and say, okay, write 15 more. And so then we actually have 30, depending on how big the project is. If I'm working with a team that has a year-long project, we're going to need a lot of support and we're going to need a lot of champions of our projects. And so 15 is usually the minimum that I write down. Again, even if it's a personal project that I'm trying to work on in the home or within my life, I'll write down who can I actually call on for support and who can help champion that success. And so by building that guiding coalition, again, it's very easy as we're going from ideation to implementation. They're going to hit some roadblocks, whether that be on the logistical side, on the technical side, on the emotional side, as you are going through that process. And so already planning to have that list of people that you can call or that you can reach out to is really powerful, because whenever you're in the weeds and whenever you're in the moment of facing those challenges, sometimes it can be easy uh, to overlook the people that are championing our success. So I really encourage to do this activity at the beginning of especially a large project, writing out who is actually there to help champion your success. Okay, so what have we done so far? We have built our sense of urgency, right? So we have created a sense of urgency, whether that be through bringing in an outsider, having that in our everyday, right? The joy of creation, that would be an everyday sense of urgency. We're creating the future. Seeing urgency within crisis or addressing those no-nos or the naysayers. And then the next thing that we're going to do is build our guiding team. So we know what we want to do. We've outlined in a very simple way in 4 words or less. This is what our project is. We understand that our project is going to go through seasons. We have a sense of urgency, and now we have our guiding team of who is going to lead us towards success. Now we need to address what our team expectations are going to be. And it can be very easy, especially if it's a specific product, to say, well, the goal is to create this product. But I encourage you to actually go a step further. So either turn over your piece of paper or get out a new piece of paper. And we are going to, I'm going to give you a little bit of pressure, right? So I've given you a few different challenges today. What I want you to do is I want you to outline your expectations for your project. Now, I'm saying that very vaguely to give you a little bit of autonomy on how you want to take that question, depending on where you're at in the project. All right, so I'm going to give a little bit more insight after we are finished with this project. So what I want you to do is I want you to pull out your piece of paper, and I want you to turn it landscape-wise. So turn it landscape. And I want you to draw one line horizontally across and then three lines vertical. So you should have 8 boxes total. You should have 8 boxes total. So one line horizontal and then 3 lines vertical, creating 8 boxes in a landscape piece of paper. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to give you 20 seconds per box to outline an expectation that you have for your project. This
We
could
can't
be an
hear you,
expectation
Amber,
for the team,
at
right?
all.
So what is going to be our attitude? How are we going to show up
Can
in
you hear
meetings?
us?
What's our communication? It could be an expectation for the actual product. So what does success look like within that?
Ah, you do.
Yes, I can hear. Can you hear me?
Okay, my mistake. Sorry, my mistake. I think something's wrong on my side. The technical problems continue, but I will solve it. I'm sorry for that, Amber. Please go on.
Okay. No, thank you for letting me know. If you can't hear, then I will move around the space some more.
No, that was definitely my problem. I mean, I need to restart my PC. Probably some updates are messing around with everything here, but yeah, sorry for that.
No, that's totally fine. Trying to think. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is I gave you a few different examples. Other people have put expectations for this project moving forward. So these are, again, I'm going to allow you, depending on where you're at in your project, if you're in the middle, if you're just beginning, or if you're on the tail end of your project, I'm going to give you a little bit of latitude here. I want you to draw what your expectation is. I know we're not artists here, right? So but I want you to try and outline what an expectation is of your project in 20 seconds in the first box. Whenever I say the word next, I want you to immediately move from the first box to the second and draw a different expectation that you have of your project. Again, if you are just beginning the project, this could be more on outcomes, on team expectations. If you are on the tail end, it could be more on expectations moving forward. So because everyone in this situation is going to be a little bit different on your projects, I'm going to leave it a little bit vague. Okay. So you're going to have 20 seconds per box. Whenever I say next, you're going to immediately leave one box and move to the next. I understand that none of us are artists here. I, even myself, am not an artist. So generally in this activity, I draw a lot of stick figures. Sometimes I include some words in there as well. So once everyone is ready, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go. Seeing some thumbs up. Okay. All right. Perfect. Ready, set, go. Start my music. Next box. What is an expectation that you have of your project? Next box. You're on your third box. Move to your fourth box. You're on box 5, halfway there. What is an expectation that you have of your project? All right, next box. All right, last one. What's an expectation that you have of your project? Three, two, one. All right. That was 8 boxes, right? Yeah, that was 8 boxes. Okay. All right. How was that? How was that? Was that easy, hard? On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being this was super easy, 1 being this was crazy difficult. How was that? 4. Okay. 4 is a good number. Yeah. 4, 3. Okay. It's Yeah, usually, especially an idea that we've had for a long time or a project that we've been working on for a long time, we have a lot of ideas in our head, but usually I find that the first 3 or 4 boxes, I have them, I'm pretty good, and by the time I get to box about 6, 7, 8, that's whenever I start I start having to stretch a little bit. Yeah, that's whenever I have to, yeah, stretch a little bit to try and figure out what are those expectations that I have. Exactly. Yeah. So this is actually a really good activity that I do within my team. So I'll do this within a team whenever we first begin a project or whenever we are halfway or at the end. So we'll do it in all 3 situations. And I gave you 3 different ideas of prompts, right? So if I first begin a project, I'll give you an example. Whenever I first begin a project, I was working with a group of educators that were getting ready to start the school year. And so we did the 8 box challenge. And what we found is that there were some expectations that were shared by everyone. And so that brought clarity of, okay, this is something that is really important to the group. We also found that there were some expectations that team members had of the team that other team members were not aware of. We found that there were some expectations of ourselves that, oh, I think that the team wants me to do this, and no one else had that expectation. And so by having this is a 2.5 minute activity. This is not a long activity, but by having this quick activity, we were able to identify the top 8 expectations or values of our project. We were able to identify what success looked like. For some people, success would mean getting it done, uh, getting it done at a specific time frame, no matter what. So if we have to work nights and weekends and kill ourselves to get it done by this deadline, that's good. And then for some people, it was no, we want to actually take the time and build a quality product and invest our time there, right? And so these are 2 different expectations of the ways and the approach of work for a specific project. And there's a balance there, right? But you're able to identify the expectations that team members have, and it opens the door to a really powerful conversation about how you are going to work moving forward. So that's an example of using that on the front end, on the front end of identifying what expectations are of how you are going to work. And so you can adjust this prompt just slightly, right? So what are your expectations for our style of work? What are our expectations for the outcomes of this project, right? What are our expectations for whenever we have frustrations or conflict, right? And so these are all slightly different prompts that we can use. I'll use this in the middle for a check-in of, what's your emotion, how are you feeling, what expectations were unmet, what expectations have been met. So we'll do that as a quick check-in in the middle, and then at the end we'll use this. I use this actually most extensively in a retrospective at the end of a project, and we'll ask ourselves, okay, what can we do to parlay? I did this with a group a few weeks ago where we had finished a really big project, and we did an 8-box challenge to ask, how can we parlay our success in this project into our next endeavor? And so from there, we had a massive ideation session of how we could parlay our success from one project into our next ideas, and how we could implement that. So here's a lot of different ways that you can use an 8-box challenge, whether that be in the beginning, the middle, or the end of your implementation process. I definitely recommend using that in the middle, or in the beginning of your implementation process, to lay out those expectations. Because see, as we have built that sense of urgency, we built our guiding coalition. Sometimes that coalition has a lot of different ideas, and a lack of clarity of our goals and expectations is one of the biggest, nay, the biggest sabotage, can lead to the biggest sabotage of great implementation. If everyone is defining our goals and defining our success differently, then that's going to sabotage successful implementation of our ideas. So spending time to actually clarify and define success and expectations within our team is truly critical. Now now we've done a lot, right? So you should have several pages of information as far as your project specifically and what you are doing moving forward. The next thing that I want you to do is look at one of those definitions of success. If you didn't do that within your 8-box challenge, then I encourage you to define what success is going to look like in your project. And from there, and I do this with my teams, right? So we'll say, this is what success looks like. What needs to happen? What needs to be accomplished for us to reach that goal? And this is where we go into a little bit more of an agile framework, and we begin building a story, or we begin building a exhaustive list of what we need to accomplish to meet our goal, to meet that project success. And so what I will do, where did my board go? Okay. I'll do it this way. So what I will do is I will take a piece of paper, and I'll put it this way, and I will list out everything that needs to, actually I'll do it this way. I'll list out everything that that can lead to project success. And then we will prioritize and place weight on these different action steps moving forward, right? So we'll be able to prioritize and say, okay, these are the things that need to be done first. These are things that have a lot of weight. And so we'll look at a few different things, right? So we make an exhaustive list of what needs to happen for project success. That's our first thing. Then we prioritize by looking at priority, right? So is this absolutely necessary for project success? If part of project success for us is defined as we are getting this project done and we are doing this in a way that we are not completely and totally stressed, then having a donut Friday might be really helpful towards that. But if we don't have it, it's not going to completely throw the project off the rails, right? So that's, yeah, that's important, but it's not, it doesn't have a ton of weight, right? So these are things that we can look at. It would be nice to have a specific feature within an app, but if we don't have it, then it's not going to make the app unfunctional. It would just be a nice thing to have, right? So we're looking at what is everything that needs to happen, and we look at the weight. So how important is it? We look at the priority. So does this need to be done right now? And then we do an estimate of, okay, how much time is this going to take to complete? And so we make a priority there of what needs to happen. So, and again, I'll do this within personal projects as well. Let me pull out. So I know that creating user stories can take a little bit of time. So I'm going to give you a second to draw out that format on a piece of paper. And then that's something that can be filled in as we're moving forward. And I know we just have a few minutes left, so I have 2 more really big steps for you. So just to go back to our list of what we are doing, about what we have done so far, we have created a sense of urgency. First off, we've defined our project in a very, we've defined our idea in a very clear and simple way. We've created a sense of urgency. So why is this idea important? We have built our team of who's going to help champion our success. We have laid out expectations for our idea. And we have drawn out a plan of everything that needs to happen. So the next thing that we must do, and this is another huge sabotager of great project success, is communication, right? So we have to be able to communicate the ideas that we have. We could have an excellent plan, we could have great expectations, but if they're not communicated in a way that is understood, then that can be a big sabotager of our success. So Dr. Mark Rutland, he is a brilliant communicator and leadership expert. He writes that all great communication boils down to 4 major things. And I find whenever I'm communicating within a team, and whenever I'm working within a team, if I have hit the mark on all 4 of these, I've done a good job communicating. But if I miss even one, then it can totally derail the dialogue and the message effectiveness. So great communication boils down to the right message delivered in the right way to the right audience at the right time. So I'll put that in the chat. So it's the right message, the right way, the right time, the right audience. All right, so whenever I am crafting my message, I really want to focus on 2 major things. And that is simplifying or clarifying your message, especially if you are speaking to stakeholders that do not have a technical background. We're trying to explain the idea. I use a lot of different techniques. We have whole new different workshops on simplifying technical jargon, but I clarify that jargon and clarify that idea within my messaging in a way that is relatable, digestible, and approachable. All right, so I try to explain my idea as simply as I can, as if I were explaining it to a 5-year-old, right? So whenever I'm explaining the idea, I really focus on those functions and what is necessary to know. And then I also look at the right way. Now, the right way, especially in a virtual COVID lifestyle way that we are right now, can mean a lot of different things. In this situation, I really want you to focus on the method of communication. What I mean is this: there is a huge difference in the understanding and in the way that a message can be received in the way that we deliver the message. So if we have a very complex plan, if we have a very complex idea and we attempt to communicate all of that the first time through email, then that can be a sabotage of that message success. Understanding the complexity and the emotion of a message is important in understanding the best method to deliver a message. If we have a message that is purely informational and not based off of personal performance or is going to have a personal, major impact, then an email, a text, a memo, something like that is totally fine. If we have a project that is more than likely going to merit some questions and answers, is going to merit some more deep conversation, then try to be as personal as you can. So whether that be a quick Zoom call, it be if we can do an in-person conversation, a phone call, creating some sort of platform so that we can have quicker feedback loops within our communication to ask those questions is going to be huge. So looking at that right message delivered in the right way at the right time to the right audience. So making sure we have the right people involved as well. And then my very last steps. I've given you 6 steps now on how to go from ideation to implementation. To reframe one last time, we are going to identify our idea. We're going to create a sense of urgency. We're going to build our team. Who's going to champion our success? We're going to lay out our expectations and clarify those expectations. We are going to come up with a plan. So I'll give you some agile tools that you can use within your project management. We're going to communicate the right message the right way to the right audience at the right time. And then lastly, we are going to empower action. And this is super important. See, I believe that if we can achieve our dreams all on our own, then we're probably not dreaming big enough. If you want to do something bigger than yourself, then you're going to have to include more than yourself. And we want to empower others to help see our ideas successfully implemented and come to fruition. And here we are asking ourselves, how can we empower action to be on someone else's team to champion their success as well, right? So this is a collaborative effort as we are moving forward. As you are building that team, and I think I saw some people writing it down. I can keep it up a little bit longer. As you are building your team and you empower that action and you see your project come to success, I encourage you to be mindful of Tuckman's model. I think, where did it go? Of Tuckman's model over here, where we go from that forming, storming, norming, performing stage. And as you have finished your idea, or as you have seen your idea come to fruition and you've completed your project, then we adjourn and we cut through the norms. And I encourage you to create higher levels or higher norms for your next project moving forward. Huge idea of our ideas. A major purpose of our ideas is to spark future inspiration for even greater ideas. Ideas don't stand all on their own. They are inspired by the ideas before us, and they can inspire future ideas to come. And so that's a really empowering thought of the ideas that we have today are truly creating the future. And so I encourage you, as you complete your projects, to recognize that that is not the end. That is the beginning of your next idea that you can implement to improve our workplaces, to improve our lives, and to truly improve our communities moving forward. So with that, I've given you a lot of information today, and you have done a really great job of taking those in stride. I hope that this was helpful to you as you look at your ideas so that you can implement them in a powerful way moving forward. I'm going to open the floor to any questions that anyone has about their specific ideas, or how to implement their ideas moving forward.
First of all, thank you very much, Amber, for this. It was very, very nice, very interesting. I tried to create all these drawings, although I'm not a good drawer or painter. I don't know. To be honest, I stuck at six. Six. I couldn't find 7 or 8. Do you think if you can't find that many reasons of creating your app, you shouldn't even try? Because if it's an idea that it's just there for some time, years maybe, maybe the reason that you're not starting it is that you never found I don't know, a very interesting reason of doing it, something very inspiring, or actually at the end a goal. Maybe it's just a nice idea in your head and nothing more. How can you actually differentiate from just having a nice idea that is probably not worth investing on that, and something that you can indeed spend some time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I find that that question is usually asked not so much in the expectations, but in the urgency, right? So this is where I have, I can have 30 different ideas today that I could act on, but I have to choose which one or two I'm actually going to do, right? And so there is that question of there's a lot of options. There's a lot of ideas that I have. I apologize if you hear that. Those are tornado sirens. But not, it's a drill. It's a drill. We don't have tornadoes
Okay.
right now.
I was worried for a second.
Um, they
We
test
don't
them.
want to see the background disappearing or something.
Yeah. No, it's a drill for right now. But yeah, that's the huge question is, okay, I have the option to choose where I am going to devote my time and my energy. And there are some ideas that I've had that I've thought, that's a really good idea, but I don't have the I don't have a sense of urgency to act on that idea versus these two other ones that I'm focusing on right now, And so this is where I have to really prioritize where I'm going to focus my sense of urgency on. What's going to happen if I don't do that today, or if I don't do that this week or this year, And so these are the questions that I have to ask. When it comes to expectations, um, I you're not the first person to say, hey, I got 6 or 7, and then I didn't think 20 seconds is a very little amount of time, right? So I've done this actually with designers as well, of okay, draw something, and it's a different way to explain ideation rather than writing out a list. And I think that it depends on the way that we do the prompt. So that's on me as a facilitator to give a prompt that can invoke at least 8 ideas. And so generally, there are different expectations with the way that we work, the outcomes, what's going to be my, my personal time input on this, and so uh, there are different prompts that you can use to invoke different expectations within a team. This one I gave very generic and very broad because we weren't working with a specific project. Everyone was working on a slightly different project in this group.
Okay. Do you think that these 8 expectations anyway are actually the definition of success? I mean, how do you define that my idea after implementing it is successful?
Mm-hmm. Um, those expectations, I usually use that to open up the door to conversation so that there's continuity of expectations within a team. So I have seen within teams that might go from ideation to implementation, and they have different expectations of communication. They have different expectations for preparation in meetings, and it's those questions that, if not brought up at the beginning, they can cause a lot of frustration as we move into the implementation process. And so it's not necessarily a definition of the end product success, though if that's how you set it up, it could be. But it's not necessarily the definition of the product success, but what success is going to look like within our team moving forward. As I work within the team, then we will move into another phase where we define these are our KPIs, right? Or our key performance indicators of what success is going to be. An 8-box challenge isn't necessarily our KPIs. That's going to be more of our way of work expectation.
Okay, got it. But maybe I didn't got something else. So you mean that in these expectations, we should also include the expectations of the implementation process and not of the end result? So I'm expecting also to finish it in 2 months and I don't know, have dailies and whatever.
You can do, yeah, you can include that. Yeah. Yeah, you can include that in the way that you are asking the question.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is why this is why the way that we ask that question can lead to more than 8 answers, just depending on the way that we ask the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting stuff. I think we could ask questions forever. There is one by Stefan. How do we know what's the right time to adjourn?
Ooh, great question. So that is, in some industries, that is very easy to tell, right? So I used to be a football coach, soccer coach. I actually have done some stuff for Bayern Munich. I have a giant Bayern Munich flag over there. But so in soccer, it's very easy, right? So the adjourning stage is at the end of a match. And so then we adjourn and then we go back to storming, which is the practice, the pitch, right? And then we practice again to establish better norms so that we can play our next match better. So it's very easy in football. Whenever I'm working on a specific project, then at the end of the project, then whenever the project is at completion, especially if I'm working with a client, if there is a specific deadline, if we're doing a rollout, then that can be defined as adjourning. Within projects or within ideas that are more continuous, so there's 2 different forms, right? So those are very, very distinct. This is an adjourning process, right? The project is rolled out, the match is finished. The event has now has been completed. If I am in a team or in a style of work that is more consistent, right? So we do consistent coding, we do consistent I work with HR teams, right? So that's going to be consistent. What we do is we actually set an adjourning stage within, we time box it, right? So we'll say every quarter we will have an adjourning stage and say, what has been, so within adjourning, this is a retrospective, and we ask what's going really well, what can we do a little bit better, how can we go back to a storming phase to establish better norms. And so if it's consistent, then I'll time box it. But if it's an actual project, then I look at the rollout stage, I look at the end of an event, I look at I look at how we're going to define what success looks like and whenever we reach that point. So it depends on the style of work, but yeah, within some, I have a very clear adjourning. If I don't, then I'll put a time box on it. I don't know if that answered your question, Stefan.
Cool. I don't know if there are any more questions. I will just give some time to anyone to think any potential questions by saying, if someone has a question after this event, they want to ask something, an advice, or even ask you to help them, how can they find you?
So I just put my LinkedIn information in the chat. So yeah, so I put my LinkedIn information in the chat. You can also find me on Twitter. It's my last name and my first name. So at Vanderburg Amber.
I can share my screen and then I can share your Twitter account here. Probably, I hope you can see it right now. So yeah, and I can also zoom in, I guess. Oh, I overdid it, but anyway.
That's yeah. So if you want to reach out about any specific projects that you're working on, I'd be happy to answer any questions as well. You guys, I gave you a lot of challenges today, and I really appreciate you stepping up to the bat to engage in all of those. Was there even beginning with 4 words? 4 words can be a little bit challenging sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic.
So I think since there are no more questions, I think we are done, right?
I think we are done. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to keep in contact, and I wish you the best of luck as you are moving from ideation to implementation within your ideas. Keep in mind that as we finish one idea, it can inspire and spark a new one. So this is a continuous project, continuous process, as we are, as stated before, we are truly creating the future. So.
Thank you very much, Amber, for this. I really appreciate it, and it was super interesting and helpful. I hope we can see you again in a future meetup someday. We can talk, and yeah, up until then, everyone stay safe. We all hope that this weird situation will soon be over. And finally, we will also have some real life events, some real life talks. Up until then, keep safe. Thank you all for being here today, and see you soon in our next meetup. Ciao.
Thank you.